Welcome back everyone. As most of you people know by now, the Google Pixel 4a was a phone that Google actually released this year, and in my opinion, it was one of the I think it was a phone that was just beloved by everyone. There wasn't really any major problems with it, and it was pretty much what we expected. And because this phone wasn't necessarily a flagship type of phone, I think a lot of people were totally okay with some of the things that, Google was kind of, overlooking, and some things they purposely took out just to keep that price tag low. Because right before this phone, a couple months before this came out, we had that iPhone SE2, which for a lot of people may actually have been the best budget phone of that year, the $399 iPhone SE2. But this one, with its design, with its software, and really with its, screen and everything, Google really made a pretty good phone for $349, and it's even gotten cheaper in the last 4 months. This thing's been out for 4 months now, so I kind of wanted to give an updated review. I mean, most of you people already know how it holds up, how it runs and everything, so nothing has really changed with that. This phone still performs pretty well. There hasn't really been too many hiccups, and I will tell you, a lot of my first complaints that I first had with this phone have really been resolved. One of my biggest complaints about this specific device was that chipset, and with its Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G chipset, I saw it and I was like, well, you know what, for a phone at this price tag is totally okay, but I've been kind of really shocked by how good of a performing phone this has been. And I definitely want to say it's not faster than, flagship phones of this year. It's not faster than like a OnePlus 8 or a Galaxy S20 or a Galaxy Note 20 or anything like that, or an iPhone 12. But it's still a very good performing phone. And I was pretty shocked when I was comparing this thing to the Pixel 5 and a lot of other phones that are a little bit more expensive than this. I was pretty shocked by how fast this thing was. And I think that has a lot to do with more so than just, the chipset and all that inside of it. I think it has a lot to do also with, the software and how, stock that software is inside of it. So that's another huge thing within this phone that really makes me love this phone a lot. And when you compare this type of phone to what we were getting last year, even from Google themselves, I mean, with the Pixel 4 and 4 XL, that thing had, pretty good chipset. I mean, that was the best one at the time, but it had less RAM than the Pixel 4a. And in my opinion, it didn't even look as good as the Pixel 4a. And that phone came out over a year ago. And now with the 4a being, 4 months old at this point, it still makes it that much better of a deal in my opinion. I feel like this phone has only gotten better since it's been out, which is huge. Now, the biggest complaint I had besides the, speed and performance aspect was probably the way it feels. It definitely doesn't feel that great or that premium of a phone. And still at this point, nothing has changed, but we did get the Pixel 5 that just came out, and I've already done a comparison between the Pixel 5 and the Pixel 4a, and I was pretty shocked by how similar they feel. Definitely the Pixel 5 feels more premium, but even the Pixel 5 doesn't feel that premium compared to something like a Galaxy S20 or an iPhone 12 mini or something like that, you know what I mean? So that in and of itself kind of shocked me too. I was expecting a little bit more build quality from the Pixel 5, but because it doesn't feel that crazy premium, in a way it kind of makes the Pixel 4a kind of feel a little bit more premium because of the Pixel 5 in a way. And I know it's very hard to understand, but because it doesn't have like the next best thing, because the Pixel 5 doesn't really feel like a crazy huge, $1,000 phone, it really makes the Pixel 4a kind of, a little bit better of a deal in my opinion, because we only have the Pixel 5 to compare it to in its same lineup. And because of that, it makes the Pixel 4a kind of look and feel like a better performing and better, premium phone in my opinion. But because of that price tag, like I said before, it kind of justifies a lot of issues that we may already be expecting from this type of phone. Now, that front panel, in my opinion, is this phone's probably biggest asset. We still have that 5.81-inch OLED panel, and it's 1080p, and, I will definitely tell you, it is a very good panel for this type of phone. I was expecting, Google to kind of push out something like like the Pixel 3a. We've already talked about the phone a ton of times, but I was expecting Google to kind of take that type of approach, to put that type of screen on this thing, and they didn't. They put this one in, and since then, since this phone's been released, I haven't really heard too many people talk about this phone since probably the iPhone 12s came out, which was like October. But regardless, I mean, this phone still looks like a very good phone, and that's a huge thing about this device. And whenever you pick up a phone like this, you don't want it to feel outdated, you don't want it to look outdated. And even 4 months later, this phone still looks like a very good premium phone on the front. Definitely is built out of plastic throughout, but I really don't think that's a humongous deal by any means. Now, we still have those cameras, which I think have only gotten better. I think we've gotten a few software updates here and there. It is that 12.2 megapixel sensor on the back and that 8 megapixel front facing camera. Now there's no dual camera set up on either one of these cameras, which is totally okay, but I still think that back camera is perfectly fine for the most part. We surprisingly have a lot of features built in too, which for a camera of this caliber for this price tag is pretty strange, because I'll be honest, like, you expect it to have a way worse camera. You expect it to have, super bad, looking photos and all that stuff at $349. But that is definitely not the case. This phone's performance is extremely good for the most part. Like I stated, you're not going to pick up this phone and feel like you have a $350 phone. You're going to feel like you have, in my opinion, like a $500 phone, $550 phone. And just to kind of rewind you back, phones like the Galaxy S5, the Galaxy S6, Galaxy S7, these type of phones kind of had the same type of camera setup as this one, as even the Galaxy S8, to be honest. And those were just like the Galaxy S8 came out in 2017. So it hasn't even been that old if you think about it. So that's another huge plus point for the Google Pixel 4a. You're definitely going to feel like you have a pretty good quality camera, a pretty good quality phone for the most part from this type of device. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. I've had a lot of issues with this type of camera. 4K at 60, there's none of that. No ultra wide sensor, no telephoto lens. The front facing camera, you can't do 4K even on that. But like I stated, I think for a majority of people out there, this camera is going to be more than enough. And I even think 4 months later, even 4 months later than now, even a year later from now, for this type of price tag, it's very hard to, complain about anything, if I'm being honest. Now, the battery life has been one of those things that's been pretty much consistent as well. It wasn't amazing when it first came out, and it still isn't like crazy great, but it's been pretty much consistent. It hasn't degraded for me. It's still at 100% capacity, which is great. And, obviously it's a 3,140 milliamp hour battery. It's not like 4,500 milliamp hours or 5,000 milliamp hours like we have on some other phones. But I think for the most part, this is perfectly fine, and I really don't think people are going to complain about it too much. So to kind of sum up this video and to, answer to you, how has the Pixel 4a been for the last 4 months? Well, I can definitely tell you, like how I stated before, this type of phone is one of those devices that, it's very rare. Very rarely do companies make a device that pretty much is beloved throughout everyone. Even a phone like the iPhone SE2, when it first came out, it was pretty much beloved by everyone, I'm not gonna lie. But I feel like, me personally, when the Pixel 4a came out, a lot of people were kind of flocking to this type of phone because it looked better. It just looked like a more premium device than the iPhone SE2, even though the SE2 may have been a little bit more powerful, actually more powerful, better camera setup on the back, and just overall I think a more functional device than the Pixel 4a because it has that newer chipset inside of it. But with the Pixel 4a, it was cheaper, it had a better looking display, had a better looking front, and without that, you have to give so much credit to Google for making this type of phone. I think this phone is still completely worth it in the later part of 2020. I still think it has a lot of capability. It's definitely not perfect though. If you expect to get this phone and be happy in every single dimension, I think depending on your use, and maybe if you're coming from like a Galaxy S3 or a Google Pixel 1 or something, you will probably have a pretty decent experience. I'll say probably upgrading from those phones to this one. But like I said before, it's definitely not going to be perfect. Don't expect to just upgrade to this phone and expect to have a perfect, experience overall. But I will tell you, like I said, if you're coming from one of those phones, especially an older phone, probably before 2017, you're definitely going to have a pretty good experience from this specific Google Pixel 4a. I haven't had too many issues. It's been pretty consistent. And every time I compare it to any other device, it's been perfectly fine for the most part. And it's been pretty, expected, for the price tag as well. So that really pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.